Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fusion Deck User in a different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. What If Natsu had dual elements will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. I'd love to do another poll to decide our next project, but unfortunately, due to my travel plans, I won't be able to start a new series until the end of December if we go that route. So instead, I've decided that the series which came in second place in the last poll will be our next project. That means the series replacing What If Natsu had dual elements will be What If Transmigrated into One Piece and became a Marine. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 171, Return to the Original. After learning all of this, Hikaru began transporting everything from the fractured dimension into the alchemy workshop. Although Professor Banner's workshop appeared small on the outside, in reality, that subdimension, under Hikaru's continued study and experimentation, had been revealed to be its true form, the Grand Universe. Hikaru had long wondered where Professor Banner's most powerful card, the Macrocosmos, had disappeared to in canon. Occasionally, he would search the workshop like he was hunting for a philosopher's stone, thinking it might be hidden somewhere. But as his knowledge of alchemy deepened, Hikaru gradually came to realize the Grand Universe workshop was the Macrocosmos. Although the workshop's planets weren't the size of real celestial bodies, each could only house 2 or 3 people, the Grand Universe workshop had plenty of space. Within this fractured dimension, besides the unconscious dual spirits turned puppets, there were also many materials tainted by dark power. These were premium crafting components for Shad Doll monsters, which Hikaru planned to synthesize into lower-level Shad Dolls later. Beyond that, he also re-inspected the machines inside the fractured dimension. After a full day's work, even with his body now far beyond human limits, Hikaru felt some fatigue. Thankfully, the area had already been sealed by that unit leader, and Hikaru himself used alchemy to seal off the fusion army's dimensional gate so no one could enter. Finally, after dismantling all of the fusion army's gates, Hikaru could finally leave with peace of mind. Before returning to the workshop, Tiara turned back and glanced at the wreckage-strewn, desecrated fractured dimension, its original form completely unrecognizable. She raised her hand gently and snapped her fingers. Then, under the effect of the return gate, she and Hikaru returned to the Grand Universe workshop together. "What did you just do?" Hikaru asked Tiara. Tiara's sudden gesture left him confused and wary. Tiara calmly folded her arms in front of her chest. Without showing any discomfort at being suspected, she earnestly explained to Hikaru, "You did a very good job erasing your tracks, Hikaru. Still, you left those shadow-affected humans behind. Even if it's because you didn't care enough to deal with them, they would still become tools and cores for the very humans you oppose." Hikaru raised an eyebrow slightly. "Yes, you also used alchemy to seal off all standard methods of entering that dimension, but that's too troublesome." After saying this, Tiara floated off to the side and began unsealing a cup of instant ramen, pouring in hot water as she added, "So I simply returned the fractured dimension to its origin." But what stunned Hikaru wasn't that she had acted on her own, but that she had actually been able to use that kind of divine authority. That dimension was already in ruins. Of course, it wanted to return to its origin, Tiara explained gently while closing the lid on her ramen and turning back to Hikaru. "Just as spirits can feel pain, worlds themselves can feel as well. As for the energy required, that fractured dimension was tiny to begin with, and there were a lot of puppet humans to use as material. Using this ability was easier for me than boiling a cup of ramen. All I had to do was accelerate the natural entropy that was already within that broken world. So that's how it was." Hikaru understood. After all, Tiara was the source of destruction goddess who governed death, rebirth, and natural evolution. Even if only a tenth of her body was functioning, she could still do such things. It wasn't surprising. So he didn't find it strange. Instead, it was the surrounding spirits, those onlooker types, who were stunned speechless upon realizing that Tiara could do something like that. They had already held her in great reverence, but now they were even more awestruck. Even though they'd tried to imagine the extent of this goddess's power, they hadn't expected her to be a literal god-tier being. After all, in the spirit world, plenty of spirits had God in their name, yet very few actually were divine. The Blade brothers were fine, they had never seen a god before, but they had trained under the primordial Chaos Warrior for a long time. They had little concept of gods, but a solid grasp of god-level power. The other spirits could only gasp in amazement. Not far away, Assault Corps, who had spent the entire day helping Hikaru transport materials, watched the others gaze upward in silence, beeped confusedly, and rolled its treads forward to continue working. "Take a break, Assault Corps," Hikaru called out. His next task was to examine Captain Crystal's body and, using low-risk methods, transform it into El Shaddai Grista. So he no longer needed Assault Corps running around. Although Assault Corps appeared to be a robot, Hikaru understood very well, it might be mechanical, but it was still a spirit, a spiritual being at its core. It couldn't be treated like a lifeless tool. On the other side, Tiara had already started eating her ramen. She had never once worried that Hikaru might react negatively to her acting on her own, might try to restrain her, or might limit her freedom to travel. Having spent so much time with him, Tiara had come to understand Hikaru in many of her own, unique ways. Even though he possessed a powerful card, Hikaru was a conservative person not in personality or in dueling, but in how he used that card. He never actively used it to eliminate evil, he never wielded shadow games to dispose of his enemies. Of course, if someone were asking to die, he wouldn't hesitate. So when Hikaru saw those soldiers turned into puppets by Shaddai power, he felt no sympathy or pity. To him, it was what they deserved. Even so, he also wouldn't use their remains to fuel his own power. Tiara had seen this many times. She understood this mindset well, a being of tremendous power who imposed limitations on themselves to avoid becoming swollen with ego, losing control, or going mad. What she admired about Hikaru wasn't just his pursuit of fusion or his trust in his friends, but his clarity about himself and the world. He knew what he should do. He understood what the world should be. So when she disposed of those humans, at most, Hikaru might be annoyed that she acted unilaterally. Despite that, he would never fault her for eliminating them. As a goddess who had lived and died and lived again and again, Tiara had seen too much of such cycles. She didn't want the next time to involve a row of puppets facing Hikaru with dual discs and sacred beasts, wasting time and ruining his mood. Turning them all into fertilizer for the world was the only way she could be at peace. After all, her divine champion had far more important things to do. He had no time for petty cleanup. Besides, tidying up after her champion was part of her divine role. Chapter 172, Invitation. Okay, it's done. Everything went smoothly. Captain Crystal stood up unsteadily, his form had drastically changed. With Tiara's assistance and Crystal's own tolerance, the transformation had gone exceptionally well. Although he still resembled a knight, the gems embedded in him had become much dimmer. Behind his armored body, red puppet strings twisted and coiled incessantly, like the wings of an angel. El Shaddai Grista, meant to be a divine guardian angel. That said, Tiara clearly hadn't put much thought into the name when she chose it. Because Grista, embedded in the name, also implied a fallen angel. But, considering what happened later, it all made sense. Ooh. This form is gorgeous. See, Hikaru, I told you we should turn it into a fire attribute. Tiara beamed at Crystal's new appearance, gazing up and rambling non-stop. It's just a bit too big, Hikaru muttered, looking up. To allow Crystal to bear more pain and hatred, he had to be expanded and enlarged so he could adapt to the new power in a stable, gradual manner. That said, it wasn't a problem for Crystal since he could still simulate his old form. Though his true body had changed into another card, a spirit could travel among the different cards tied to it, just like how Jaden's Avian looked like Avian, but was actually Great Tornado, and could still represent Avian via the card. Previously, Crystal had used Gemknight Prismora and Gemknight Zirconia. Now, Hikaru even had a new Gemknight Citron and Gemknight Master Diamond, although those two cards were still undergoing pulverization reconstruction and needed to be scaled down to usable size. there were plenty of bodies to occupy. After flexing a little, Crystal turned into a beam of light and flowed into Hikaru's deck before reappearing beside him, now clad in the armor of Prismora. This size still felt most natural. Hikaru checked the time. He turned to Full Metal Alcest and the Golden Idol, the two spirits in his camp who represented that academic and rational factions. I'll leave the rest of the awakenings to you two. Entrusting the rest of the spirit awakenings to them left him completely at ease. No problem, Master, Full Metal Alcest said confidently. I got this. It had been studying Professor Banner's alchemy under Hikaru for a long time. Though not officially Banner's apprentice, it had completely adopted his system. The old Metalfo-style alchemy was long forgotten. With the peerless alchemist's method to learn from, it was confident it could transmute gold. Hikaru gave a helpless laugh at its gung-ho eagerness to experiment with its newfound knowledge on the spirits. At least it wasn't going to perform live transmutations. The Golden Idol lightly patted its own body, assuring Hikaru that everything would be fine. Though often overlooked and constantly harassed by the Alcest, that same harassment made it the best at managing Full Metal. Lady Windeck Crystal wanted to stay behind to help awaken Gemnite Lapis, so he hoped Tiara would watch over Hikaru. Yeah, go take care of the little knight already. You think I can't handle myself? Tiara cut him off before he could finish. And you two swordsmen as well, stay put in the workshop. No wandering around to train properly, got it? The two swordsmen glanced at Hikaru. Even though they'd witnessed Tiara's divine might and many spirits now more or less obeyed her, these two still only listened to Hikaru. Without his orders, even Tiara couldn't command them. Hikaru nodded. The swordsman bowed to him. The fire swordsman chuckled, clapped Crystal on the shoulder, and together they headed off to the training chamber, the core of the workshop, where the Philosopher's Stone was housed. With everything arranged, Hikaru returned to the human world. He stretched a bit, opened his phone, and checked whether anyone had contacted him during his day away. Even though it was break time, people would occasionally reach out. Jaden, for example, might ask him to come play cards in the activity room. Still, even having prepared himself, Hikaru was shocked by the sheer number of calls and voicemails. What the hell? He'd only been gone a day. Did something huge happen? He first checked to make sure Kaiba hadn't tried to contact him, then moved on to the messages. Chaz, Bastion, and Jaden had all left voicemails. What had happened? He started listening. Oh. Tiara perked up after hearing one. Sounds interesting, Hikaru. Instead of replying, Hikaru quickly played the rest of the messages. Once he confirmed the general situation, he hurried to gather his things and ran off to the Fusion Club's activity room. When he burst into the room, the noise startled everyone. After realizing it was Hikaru, scattered voices began to call out. Hikaru! Yo, Hikaru! Master! Hikaru, where were you yesterday? Chaz exclaimed, beckoning him over. Come here, fast. The humans of S Dimension decided to initiate first contact with us? Seriously? Hikaru blurted. Yeah, that's right. Chaz nodded excitedly. It's a huge opportunity. So this was the interesting thing Tiara had mentioned. Hikaru sat with his friends. This was insider info from Kaiba, and right now, even Chaz didn't care about hoarding exclusive intel or worrying that, as Seto Kaiba's student, he shouldn't use Kaiba influence. If not now, then when? According to Kaiba internal updates, some officials from the S Dimension had finally agreed to conduct a first contact with their world. It was a trial from S Dimension, which had long distrusted parallel world humans. Previously, Kaiba expedition team had accidentally entered the S Dimension and were caught by its police. Ever since, diplomatic progress had stalled, their world remained extremely wary. Now, after more than 6 months, S Dimension was finally attempting to ease tensions. And of course, the meeting would be conducted through dueling. If this first exchange goes well, we'll be looking at a whole new frontier. Chaz declared, calculating furiously. For him, it was a perfect chance to outshine his brothers and gain prestige in the Princeton group. So, how will the exchange work? Hikaru asked curiously. Master decided to hold tournaments in different regions. According to S-Dimension's request, duelists will be selected from different levels. So that means there's a student here, right? Hikaru's eyes lit up. No need for you, Chaz grinned slyly. Huh? Hikaru frowned. Your performance during the duel with that parallel dimension was so good, Master already pre-selected you. If you want in, you're in. Chaz couldn't help but laugh. Absolute Fusionist, people have been calling you that online lately, especially since that duel with Rex Raptor got uploaded. Wow, Hikaru lit up. So this was the power of reputation. Feels great. Chapter 173. Although it was Chaz who got the exclusive scoop straight from Seto Kaiba himself, within 2 days, basically the entire world had learned of it. After all, Seto Kaiba was not the kind of man to waste time when it came to execution. More importantly, according to the latest reports, it seemed Kaiba had even invited the legendary king of games, Yugi Muto, to serve as a guest in this interdimensional event. That counted as the highest possible honor from this world toward another. Of course, Kaiba wouldn't admit that he had heard Yugi was actually curious about visiting the S-Dimension. In any case, this wasn't just a historic first contact anymore with the legendary duelist Yugi Muto, who had long since retired. Now involved, duelists around the globe erupted with excitement, celebrating it as if it were the second coming of Duelist Kingdom. Unfortunately, the S-Dimension had conditions. Because they still distrusted this world, they required that only ordinary, young duelists be sent, ideally, all of them students. Their own side would then present duelists of similar standing and unveil their king during the welcome exhibition match. That was the arrangement. And all duelists knew one thing. Seto Kaiba never backs down. So long as the challenge wasn't absurd, Kaiba always matched the power. Therefore, this first contact mission would send multiple squads of duelists, selected by type and specialty per the S-Dimension's request. Among them, Amagi Hikaru had already been selected as that absolute fusionist, skipping the preliminary trials and entering directly. The rest of the relevant duelists would compete for selection prior to the actual event. Though it was break time, not a single student wanted to miss this opportunity. Naturally, duels broke out across all designated tournament zones. In Neo Domino City, Aster Phoenix held a telescope and watched a distant duel, clicking his tongue. Age-wise, he was undoubtedly a strong candidate for this event. But because Pegasus had once ranked him the 4th greatest duelist in the world, and because of his pro-duelist status, the organizers had booted him from the candidate list. The same applied to recent graduates, working professionals, and anyone involved in the pro circuit. Sartorius hadn't foreseen this. After their last parting, Sartorius had apparently clashed heavily with Leo Akaba. Aster didn't know the details, however. Ever since Sartorius's clairvoyance seemed to have weakened, his sense for the furthest future dulled. Still, even with his abilities impaired, Aster was glad. Because he knew his friend's foresight was not a blessing, but a curse brought on by some dark power. Without it, Sartorius might finally find peace. Of course, because Sartorius couldn't foresee this, Aster had missed the window to join. Even so, he was intrigued by interdimensional diplomacy. After all, he was a duelist. Only 10 people could go? As he watched the duels, Aster mulled over the rules. 10 participants total, 4 would compete in tag duels, while the other 6 would enter solo matches. Of those 6, 1 would be chosen by the S-Dimension to participate in a unique kind of special duel native to their world. Meaning, the S-Dimension would send 11 duelists in total. A special duel, huh? Intriguing. As he mused, he continued watching the duel. There was one match in Neo Domino City that had caught his attention, a duelist he was especially interested in. Jaden Yuki. Spell card, Miracle Fusion. I fusion summon my beloved hero, this hero will send chills down your spine, Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. Watching Jaden summon his hero and secure victory, Aster lowered the telescope and leaned against the railing, deep in thought. A hero. He too used a hero deck, but not this soft version. Destiny Hero representing darkness, destruction, and fate were dark heroes, which his father had entrusted to him before dying. Years ago, when he was a child, someone broke into their home, killed his father, and stole a card. The Ace of the Destiny Hero deck. That card, to this day, remained missing, a key piece of evidence in his father's murder. That's why he often donned the mask of Phoenix Man to hunt card thieves and robbers. Despite that, even now, he hadn't found it. The ultimate Destiny Hero. Which was why he couldn't stomach Jaden's attitude using elemental hero cards simply because his teacher favored them. And when Sartorius once claimed that Jaden was his destined rival, Aster felt even more irritated. Why did fate mock him like this? Or perhaps he thought back to his visit to Duel Academy. He remembered Amagi Hikaru and that joyful, pure club they ran. The Fusion Club. He casually pulled out his deck. It was filled with elemental hero cards used mostly for cover. His true ace cards rarely saw the light of day. He clenched the deck slightly, then carefully examined it. After confirming nothing was damaged, he shook his head and packed it away. Elemental heroes work together. That's what fusion means. But my Destiny heroes are far stronger than the elemental heroes. So there's no need for cooperation. When the duel ended, he packed up and walked away. As his hair swayed, it seemed to blend with the phantom of a spirit, and the clinking of chains echoed as if bound to him. Jaden, smiling, gave his signature line, "I won." That was a fun duel, securing his spot in the delegation. He was about to share the news with his friends when he suddenly paused, glancing into the distance. He couldn't see anyone, yet felt somehow like something, or someone, was watching him, influencing him. "Congrats, Jaden." Hikaru waved excitedly, celebrating his friend's win. With that, including Chaz, who had been pushed in through the back door, the Fusion Club now had 3 guaranteed representatives. Of course, in truth, Chaz had been ordered to go by Sito Kaiba himself, as his student. In exchange, he had to defeat a regional champion. Chaz had already passed his trial, so Hikaru had come today to cheer on Jaden in person. "Ah, yeah. Ha ha ha." Jaden snapped out of it at Hikaru's shout, pushed aside the strange feeling, and rushed to high-five him. Finally, a chance to meet Yugi again, he shouted, full of joy. Chapter 174, The Strongest Duel. From the public announcement to over a month later. During that time, Hikaru successfully extracted the cards for Gemknight Citron and Gemknight Master Diamond from their fragments, and in the process, awakened many spirits. Some of them wished to return to their original worlds. Others chose to remain in the Grand Universe Workshop, becoming natives who assisted Full Metal Alchemist. The Grand Universe Workshop was vast. And thanks to the Philosopher's Stone, Hikaru could designate specific zones. These spirits, who weren't fighters and feared the outside world due to their own mutations, stayed in the workshop as odd job helpers. Unfortunately, the most seriously wounded Lapis, who had been infected for over half a year, still hadn't recovered as of yesterday, remaining in a coma, much to Crystal's worry. Now, Hikaru and the others were aboard a plane en route to Kaibacorp's designated Dimensional Development Island. Duel Academy's representatives for the event were Jaden, Chaz, and Hikaru. Atticus had originally qualified, too, but Kaibacorp informed him he couldn't bring cameras as Dimension permitted only broadcasting, not filming, and strictly forbade contestants from roaming freely. Finding it boring, he gave his spot to Alexis, who earned it by defeating Bastion in the Academy tournament. Jaden, meanwhile, had secured his spot early on by winning the Neo Domino City tournament. As a result, the Academy was sending 4 contestants to this event. The principal, despite doing nothing, was already raking in accolades. After the Kaibacorp exchange program, many young duelists had already expressed interest in enrolling. Now, the Academy's popularity was surging even more. Of course, the story had been massaged a little. Had it been left to raw competition, Hikaru was sure that only Jaden would have made the cut. However, before the tournament even began, Hikaru had urged Chaz to use his privileges to get the internal schedule from Kaibacorp. Together with Bastion and Chaz, they carefully discussed the best strategy to maximize participation among friends. In the end, however, Bastion, critical to the team's logistical operations, was narrowly defeated by Alexis. A real shame. As for Selena, she was too young. Regrettably, she couldn't participate. Nevertheless, it couldn't be helped. There were headcount limits, and with so many candidates globally, they had to follow the rules once the boundaries were drawn. Hikaru glanced around. No sign of Yugi Muto on the plane. On the other side, two girls were staring at him with great interest. His eyebrow twitched. The Tyler sisters. Of course, they were part of the S-Dimension exchange team. It made sense. As elite Fusion Army members, they weren't just students but also renowned tag duelists. Whether sent as scouts or to flex Fusion Army strength through this duel, it was completely logical. That leaves 4 more slots, Hikaru murmured. 2 more tag duelists, 2 solo duelists. After landing, Kaiba Corp staff led Hikaru and the others to a waiting room. There, they met the remaining 4. Hikaru didn't recognize most of them at a glance. Only one cheerful guy waved enthusiastically and greeted them, a personality strikingly similar to Jaden's. Hikaru recognized him immediately. Whoa, isn't that Jesse Anderson? A GX fan favorite, Jesse was the Crystal Beast duelist, the second male lead, and Jaden's most reliable late series partner. Hey y'all, Jesse waved and introduced himself. He was from Duel Academy's Arctic Circle branch, hailing from Northern Europe. This guy was no joke. Not only did he wield the one-of-a-kind Crystal Beast deck, but his original storyline was intense. At one point, he was forcibly possessed by Yubel, who seized control of his body. Why Jesse, specifically? Hard to say. Regardless, Jesse was similar in temperament to Jaden, though lacking his internal coldness. He was all warmth. Naturally, he hit it off with Jaden almost instantly, and before long, they were calling each other by name and already speculating on how the duel might play out. Hikaru glanced over the remaining contestants, scrutinizing each. Still, didn't spot any obvious disguises. He briefly wondered whether other familiar characters like Jim or Axel might show up too. But no, they weren't here. After a while, a ripple of conversation passed through the waiting room. Mid-chat, Jaden suddenly paused and instinctively turned his head. 2 figures approached, one tall, one short. The shorter one, Makuba Kaiba. The taller one, lean frame, well-toned muscles, a warm smile on his face. That two-toned hair, the wild hairstyle, the flamboyant clothes, all unmistakable indicators of his identity. The legendary duelist, not just the king of games, but the strongest player in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yugi Muto. Even the Tyler sisters stood up involuntarily at his presence. Mr. Yugi. Jaden shouted excitedly. Yugi turned at the sound of Jaden's voice, smiling wider. As eyes gathered on him, a winged Kuribo spirit flew out of Jaden's deck, raised its tiny paws, and chirped cheerfully, greeting Yugi. Ah, it's you. Yugi noticed the spirit and chuckled. Looks like he's been living well with you. I knew I wasn't wrong back then. After speaking, he scanned the group. When his gaze landed on Hikaru, he paused briefly, as if noticing something. Then he gave everyone a gentle nod and added, "We'll talk later. Makuba and I still have business. I hope you all enjoy this interdimensional trip." Makuba also nodded, offering them encouragement before leaving with Yugi. Whoa! Jaden was still basking in Yugi's words. His very first spirit. Winged Kuribo, the key to defeating Professor Growler, had been a gift from Yugi. He'd always cherished it as a partner. Now, having Yugi personally acknowledge it again, he felt dizzy with joy. And then the others processed what had just happened. Chaz was so startled he fell out of his chair before recovering. Jaden knows Mr. Yugi? Am I dreaming? Wake up, flashbang, Hikaru said, tapping his head. Look how calm Alexis is. Wait, Alexis. Alexis was already glassy-eyed and swaying. Hikaru had underestimated just how revered Yugi Muto, the original king of games, was among duelists. He was excited, too, but nowhere near that level. Tiara, on the other hand, was visibly stunned. When Yugi looked at her earlier, she'd felt her very soul pierced. Seriously? How could a mortal carry such pressure? She hurriedly warned Hikaru to be careful around Yugi. Hikaru couldn't help but laugh. You think I don't know the weight Yugi Muto carries in this world better than you? After this unexpected encounter, Kaiba Corp personnel arrived for final body checks. Soon, they would pass through the dimensional gate and arrive at their destination, the S dimension. That's right. No midpoint. Direct arrival in S dimension. Chapter 175, Dimensional Friendship Cup Opening. VRRRMM. In a rundown sewer, the roar of an engine echoed continuously. Amidst a loud crackle, the engine gradually came to a stop. A man with a bizarre crab-like hairstyle crouched and began tweaking his machine. This part's too loose. Just as he was making adjustments, two people burst through the door cheerfully, a boy and a girl, one tall, one short. The boy had strange banana-shaped yellow bangs, while the girl wore fan-like triple-layered bangs. Their fashion choices were oddly coordinated. UCI, the boy called out first. So cool. Outside, it's packed with cops and D-wheels. Everyone's getting ready for today's event. The girl promptly kicked his shin and snapped, "Shut it, Yugo. Can't you see UCI's tuning his D-wheel?" UCI wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, smiled at them, and said, "It's fine. I just finished tuning." This was Satellite, chosen by Security Director Rex Goodwin as the site for the interdimensional exchange. Apparently, some people from another world had suddenly appeared, people with their own world, and their own dual monsters cards. Regardless, due to security concerns, Goodwin had long blocked communication with them. Until recently, when he suddenly changed his stance and approved an exchange event. The friendship duel was to take place in Satellite, the poorest, most rundown area of the city. The two kids, Yugo and Rin, were orphans from Satellite. The man tuning the vehicle, with the air of a developer, was their elder acquaintance, UCI Fudo. They say if we win a duel against an interdimensional duelist, we can move to the upper sector, maybe even get into the Fortune Cup with Jack there. Yugo shouted excitedly. Jack referred to Jack Atlas, the king of this world. Like them, Jack came from humble origins, albeit he had climbed into the upper sector by sheer willpower and become the king of duelists. Yugo and Rin idolized him deeply. UCI's smile dimmed slightly at their enthusiasm, though he didn't dampen their spirits, simply nodding in acknowledgement. Over the past 2 months, they had participated in the qualifiers. Though called a tournament, it was more like a battle royale. Out of countless Satellite duelists, they were the only ones to break through and earn the right to represent the city in duels against the visitors. It seemed like an honor, while in reality, they were cannon fodder. The upper sector simply wanted to test the strength of the outsiders using expendables from the bottom. Even so, UCI closed the hood of the D-wheel. Victory meant a chance to enter the Fortune Cup and face Jack again. That alone was enough to silence his doubts about the duel's motives. He had a lot he still wanted to say to Jack. They were old friends, something he never told the kids. To him, being the king's friend held no prestige, no interest. He only wanted to know one thing: why had Jack stolen his card? Why had he betrayed him? Just then, sirens blared outside, followed by loud banging at the door. Hey! Contestants! Get out here now. The visitors are about to arrive. If you make us late, you're done for. These cops are such a pain. Yugo grumbled under his breath. Let's go, UCI said simply, motioning to the kids. Okay, Rin said sweetly, elbowing Yugo to hurry him up. I know. Let's go, UCI, he shouted, racing after his mentor. Outside, numerous security officers patrolled the area. Despite the title, they weren't there to protect citizens, but to safeguard the upper sector. Above, helicopters swarmed the Satellite sky. To the locals, this kind of spectacle was a once-in-a-decade occurrence. UCI and the others followed the patrols down a pre-designated route. Upon arrival, they saw the so-called interdimensional visitors. They looked like regular humans. Nothing strange at first glance. Weird hairstyles, maybe, but that was pretty normal here, too. The visitors were chatting with security about accommodations. They were to stay in this area for 2 weeks, and per protocol, they couldn't leave the security assigned zone, but within it, they could do as they pleased. Make it their base? Sure. Tear stuff down? Build whatever? Fine. They were currently setting up some strange equipment, things resembling magic portals, as well as lighting rigs, sound systems, and cameras, which looked like they were preparing a broadcast. On the city side, helicopters were also positioning cameras and gear. Suddenly, a man UCI recognized leapt from one of the choppers, shouting excitedly, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your MC." With a slicked-back pompadour and a stylized mustache, the middle-aged man jumped down and announced, "Who would have thought I'd get to MC the first-ever interdimensional duel event?" So, without further ado, he landed with a loud thud, startling both locals and visitors alike. Striking a dramatic pose atop a broken trash bin, he shouted, "Friends from another world. Citizens of the city. Let me explain the rules of this duel." As he spoke, several helicopters unfurled a massive LCD screen in the sky. The dark screen flickered on. A neatly dressed man in white gloves and slicked back hair appeared on screen, offering a polite smile. "Greetings, visitors from another world. I am the director of security for this city, Rex Goodwin. I apologize for not attending in person due to my official duties. Still afraid of being held hostage? TCH. What a coward," one duelist muttered under his breath. Hikaru shot him a glare but said nothing, eyes on the screen. "We have already coordinated with Kaiba Corp regarding your schedule and arrangements, so I won't waste time on that. Instead, allow me to explain the format of this Friendship Cup." He outlined the duel structure. Each participant would only duel once. The goal wasn't to crown a champion, but to foster exchange. After all matches concluded, City would present its own king for an exhibition match against a chosen visitor. All other duels, including tag duels, would be determined randomly. Then he invited Sito Kaiba to spin the randomizer. Kaiba, for some reason quite fond of such machines, stepped up gladly and spun the lottery under nervous security supervision. Number 1. Hikaru raised an eyebrow. Of course. As the first confirmed contestant, he got slot 1. Next up, number 7. Whoa, someone in the security holding area cheered loudly. Hikaru turned to the voice, momentarily stunned, then startled. Elsewhere, in another dimension, a man calmly watching from a base stood up abruptly as the camera followed Hikaru's gaze. "Ha! That girl looks just like Selena," Alexis said, having spent the most time with her. "You're right. I almost thought they were twins. Is this what parallel worlds are like?" Jaden exclaimed. And Chaz muttered, stroking his chin, "They look about the same age. So, parallel world counterparts do exist? And didn't our world restrict duelists that age from competing?" He looked around the rundown area and the ragged people, rapidly piecing things together. Hikaru understood even more. His first visit to the S dimension, and he was already encountering Selena's counterpart, Yugo, and UCI Fudo. UCI, the protagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. What a day! He glanced at Jaden and at Yugi, who was busy sketching something on a drawing board. The protagonists of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are all gathering, 4 generations strong. Hikaru shook his head. He was the opening act for the S Dimension's first duel. He stood properly on stage, awaiting his opponent. Banana Head tried to leap up, but 2 cops pinned him down. Still not fully grown, he struggled free and tried to make a flashy entrance only to get a knee to the gut from Rin. She pointed at the duel platform. Scratching his head and chuckling awkwardly, Yugo stepped up. UCI encouraged him, "You got this, Yugo. Since they don't know each other, there's no pre-strategy to worry about." "No problem. Leave it to me. I'll start things off with a bang." Yugo thumped his chest, acting like he hadn't just been kneed. "Interdimensional duelist versus city satellite duelist," the MC shouted from the center of the stage. Day 1, Match 1 of the Friendship Cup. Interdimensional duelist number 1, the absolute fusionist, Amaji Hikaru. Facing, this guy, Yugo. He shouted with all his might. "Aw, man, I forgot to come up with a cool title. Yugo smacked his forehead. Duel! Hikaru shouted. Right, me too. Yugo fumbled with his dual disc, revealing a bright white model. Yugo, LP, 4000. Hikaru, LP, 4000. Chapter 176. This time, Hikaru did not take the first turn. It wasn't because his training was slower than any child's, rather, according to their agreement, the choice of going first or second in the first duel belonged to his opponent, and afterward, this right would alternate. Therefore, naturally, it was Yugo who took the first turn. Observing Yugo's youthful face, Hikaru guessed he was about 2 years younger than in the original series, roughly the same age as Selena. Speaking of Yugo, one must mention the most intriguing aspect of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! ArcV, that is, the protagonist and heroine each have parallel counterparts in different dimensions. Besides their hairstyles, these counterparts are exactly identical to each other, and each uses a unique summon dragon corresponding to their dimension's summoning method. For Yugo, that would be a Synchro Dragon. My turn. Yugo drew a card. Through Hikaru's observations, it appeared both Dimension S and Dimension X still maintained the first turn draw rule. After drawing, Yugo excitedly swung his arm, his right hand spinning like a windmill. Laughing heartily, he activated a spell card. I discard the Speedroid Den Daiko dupe from my hand to activate the spell card, Speedroid Wheel. Following his shout, a giant roulette wheel appeared on the duel field, with a motorcycle racing inside it at high speed. Inside the wheel were stickers numbered from 1 to 6 stars. Oh! Seeing this, the MC instinctively began hyping up the crowd. Duelist Yugo has activated a peculiar spell card. What could its effect possibly be? City residents, let's watch closely. When this card is activated, I roll a die. Then, I can special summon up to 2 Speedroid monsters from my hand or deck whose total levels equal the dice roll. Of course, if I can't special summon any, I take damage equal to the rolled number times 500. Isn't that purely luck-based? Chaz said, who would use such a card? Really? I think it's pretty neat. Jaden found the card quite interesting. As the two were discussing, Yugi Muto's voice sounded beside them, interesting card. It reminds me of Joey. Ah! Mr. Yugi. As the two got excited, the roulette wheel stopped spinning, and the final result was a 6. What incredible luck! The MC immediately reacted, avoiding any derogatory terms. This is the duelist representing our city. This is our first duel with someone from another dimension. Now, quickly, duelist Yugo, show us your cards. Seeing Yugo roll a 6, Hikaru instinctively felt somewhat speechless. Indeed worthy of a comic relief character, his luck was genuinely outstanding. Regarding the 4 male protagonists centered around Yuya Sakaki, they were fundamentally good people, even exceptionally so, excluding Yuri, who had been negatively influenced by Leo Akaba, Yuya, Yuto, and Yugo actually had great personalities. Unfortunately, compared to Yugo and Yuto, Yuya and Yuri were very unlucky to have encountered their guardians, Yusho Sakaki and Leo Akaba, who educated them differently into various degrees of madness. Thinking of this, Hikaru couldn't help sighing. Encountering Selena but not Yuri was quite regrettable, but judging by the current situation, Yuri had likely been secretly detained long ago. I special summon Speedroid Taketumborg and Tuner Monster, Speedroid Triad Dice from my deck. Speedroid Taketumborg, Level 3 WAND Machine 600 ATK. Speedroid Triad Dice, Level 3 WAND Machine Tuner 300 ATK. Wow, it's actually 6. That's some crazy luck, some duelists couldn't help wondering. Who would decide their first turn play by rolling dice? Speaking of which, those monsters' designs look like toys, right? That's nice. When I was a kid, I only had toys and my own cards to play with. Seeing these makes me nostalgic, Jaden happily reminisced, scratching the back of his head. Chaz keenly noticed this information and glanced at Jaden, feeling another wave of resonance. Why was this guy so similar to himself in even these aspects? Then, next. Acting like his play was perfect, Yugo raised his hand and shouted, I tune the level 3 Triad Dice with the level 3 Taketumborg. Oh. Here it comes, duelist Yugo. Tune. A group of duelists looked up at the monsters flying into the sky. One instantly disintegrated into stars, forming 3 rings surrounding the other monster, which began to blur and revealed 3 green stars. After accelerating in a cycle, a new figure appeared. Magical sword bearing a cross. Slash apart all enemies with your power. Synchro summon. Appear, level 6, high-speed raid Kendama. A cross-shaped mechanical sword emerged amidst a gust of wind on his field. High-speed raid Kendama, level 6 WAND machine 2200 ATK. Whoa! Is this a synchro summon? Just add levels until they match? Huh, pretty similar to XYZ summoning. Having witnessed XYZ summoning, the students were less surprised. Activating Kendama's effect. Once per turn, I can banish 1 machine monster from my graveyard to inflict 500 damage to my opponent. I banish Take Tomb Board from my graveyard to deal 500 damage. Energy gathered at Kendama's sword tip, forming a Take Tomb Board image, which then shot forward. Hikaru casually blocked the beam, feeling no pain. Amaji Hikaru, LP, 3500. Ha ha. Yugo excitedly punched the air. For him, this was indeed a perfect opening. Great job, Yugo. Keep it up. Not far away, Rin loudly cheered him on. As someone very familiar with Yugo's deck, she understood that although he only had 1 monster visible, it was actually quite comprehensive and not easy to counter. I end my turn just like this. Yugo punched upwards, not setting any cards, ending his turn confidently. Yugo ends with a synchro summon and damage inflicted. A splendid opening. Now, what exciting performance will our dimensional duelist, Amaji, bring us next? After drawing a card, Hikaru coughed lightly, clearing his throat. First, allow me to introduce myself. I am a second-year student from the RA Yellow Dorm of Duel Academy in our world, Amaji Hikaru. Jaden, Chaz, and Alexis exchanged looks, immediately understanding what Hikaru was about to do, sharing knowing smiles. Tiara also appeared behind Hikaru, smiling softly. As the first duelist from our world participating in this friendly duel, I greatly appreciate everyone's support. His eyes narrowed, his demeanor changing abruptly, startling Yugo. Then, as always. As is now. And forevermore. All viewers, whether students, staff, or ordinary audience members, realized what Hikaru was about to say. Fusion is the noblest summoning method. Chapter 177. Hearing these words, Yugo momentarily stared blankly. Whether it was the locals in the satellite area watching live, or those comfortably sipping wine in the upper levels observing the duel, everyone was bewildered by Hikaru's proclamation, fusion is the noblest summoning method. The reason was simple. Fusion summon existed in this world, too, didn't it? That wasn't anything special. So was this person just a lunatic, or were people from other dimensions generally like this? In fact, it wasn't just them. Even the Tyler sisters and the Fusion army duelist beside them couldn't help but frown upon hearing Hikaru's words. After all, the opponent had summoned a level 6 monster with 2,200 attack points using only 2 cards. Though it didn't appear especially strong, this kind of convenient summoning method was indeed impressive. Hikaru's extreme devotion to fusion even made them puzzled. Why was he so confident about fusion? Hikaru rubbed his cards. His hand wasn't as good as he had hoped, and it seemed his opponent's strength was indeed quite high, or rather, his opponent had exceptional luck. However, it was merely not as good as hoped. First, let's start with this one after all. Glancing at his cards, Hikaru chuckled softly. I activate the continuous spell card, Flame Sword's Realm. The last time he used this card was against the sacred beasts, recalling it brought back fond memories. Once per turn, by sending a monster from my hand or a face-up monster on the field to the graveyard, I can special summon a Flame Swordsman through Fusion Summon. I send Elemental Hero Avian from my hand to the graveyard to Fusion Summon Flame Swordsman. Boom! Blazing flames erupted as an armored warrior, wielding a massive sword and boasting thicker armor, appeared confidently by Hikaru's side. Flame Swordsman, level 5 FIR Warrior 1800 ATK. Ah, leave it to me, my lord. Seeing the opponent's monster had only 2,200 attack points, Flame Swordsman immediately got excited. Moreover, the opponent had no set cards. Wasn't this the perfect moment for him to shine? Flame Swordsman, ha! Yugi Muto gazed at this card, briefly reminiscing. This card had once been Joey Wheeler's ace. On the other side, Jaden and the others cheered. Indeed, the one who had to appear at this moment was Flame Swordsman. As expected from one of Hikaru's favorite cards. A fusion summon with just one card? Yugo blinked. That's impressive. Having systematically learned dueling alongside UCI, Yugo clearly understood dueling mechanics. He knew exactly why fusion, requiring specific materials and spell cards, was unpopular compared to Synchro, which only required monsters with sufficient levels and a tuner monster. Yet, if fusion's drawbacks could be addressed, then there wouldn't be a fundamental difference between fusion and Synchro, just a straightforward comparison of monster strength. Realizing this, Yugo immediately declared, "Bring it on. I'll shatter all your monsters." Oh. As expected from our world's duelist, quickly regaining composure in the face of his opponent's shocking declaration. Why is duelist Yugo so confident? Let's eagerly watch. The MC hyped the atmosphere. Seeing his opponent's confidence, Hikaru shrugged slightly. Glancing at his cards, he bluntly said, "I activate the spell card, Scrap Fusion. This card allows me to banish monsters from my opponent's graveyard to perform a fusion summon, even allowing me to summon my opponent's fusion monsters." Yugo exclaimed upon seeing Hikaru use such a card. "What's that? Using my monsters, but wait, I don't even have any fusion monsters." Yugo instinctively checked his extra deck. There were various toy-like monsters and synchro dragons, but no fusion monsters? That's alright, I do. What? Now, even Rin couldn't help leaning out curiously. She was even more familiar with Yugo's deck than Yugo himself, and she knew of no monsters within it suitable for fusion. "I banish Speedroid Triad Dice and Speedroid Denden Daikodu from your graveyard." Ah? Those two? Yugo was dumbfounded. Those two cards were crucial for his follow-up strategies. The fusion materials are two tuner monsters. Hikaru raised both fists, bringing them together decisively in front of him. Fusion summon. A tuner fusion monster. Sea Monster of Theseus. With his shout, an ancient, decrepit ship rose from the ground. At first glance, it was just a shipwreck, but closer inspection revealed that its hull and various parts were transformed into a mysterious octopus-like creature. Sea Monster of Theseus, level 5 Water Zombie Tuner 2200 ATK. Yugo's mouth fell open. Wow, Hikaru even got a card like this? Jaden stared blankly at the monster. Jaden, your classmate is fascinating. Jesse also got excited. I really want to duel him. Hikaru has reached an even higher level of fusion, using tuner monsters as materials now? And a fusion monster that's also a tuner? Chaz exclaimed. This is unbelievable, the MC yelled passionately into the mic, proclaiming fusion as the noblest. Duelist Amagi not only summoned Flame Swordsman with one card but also used his opponent's monsters to summon a tuner fusion monster. This is bad. Yugo finally snapped back, stepping back in shock. Triad Dice can block an attack from the graveyard, and Daikodu can revive a tuner monster. The MC paused briefly before excitedly continuing. What did I hear? This fusion summon not only brought out a fusion monster but disrupted duelist Yugo's carefully planned defenses and follow-up tactics? Truly remarkable. Is this the power of someone from another dimension? Show us your fusion, duelist Amagi. This MC was as passionate as ever. Hikaru shook his head lightly. Battle. Sea Monster of Theseus attacks right now. Flame Swords Realms effect activates. During battle involving my monsters, I can reduce one warrior monster's attack by 1000, and other monsters I control gain 1000 ATK until the end of the turn. Flame Swordsman, ATK, 1800800. Sea Monster of Theseus, ATK, 22003200. Battle. Sea Monster of Theseus attacks Kendama. Why Yugo's face contorted dramatically as the ship smashed the robot and reached out with tentacles. Yugo, LP, 40003000. Next, Flame Swordsman attacks directly. Yugo, LP, 30002200. Ugh, feeling sick. Alternating cold and heat, life and death attacks left Yugo dizzy. Hikaru glanced at his hand and smiled. I set one card and end my turn. Chapter 178. Yugo shook his head vigorously. Frequently enduring Rin's punches and kicks due to his lack of boundaries, his body was quite resilient. Moreover, since this wasn't a shadow duel but merely damage from solid holograms, he quickly recovered. Damn it! It's fusion that, my name's clearly Yugo. He seemed somewhat confused about the situation since his name meant fusion, while being a pure synchro duelist. Anyway, I'll defeat you right here, become a Fortune Cup duelist, duel jack, and have a great life with Rin and Big Bro UCI. That's what he said. His wish was remarkably straightforward. My turn to draw. I activate the effect of High-Speed Raid Kendama in my graveyard. If I have no cards on my field, I can special summon this card from the graveyard. With a loud thud resembling wood hitting a small ball, Kendama, a large cross-shaped robot, returned from the grave. Oh! Duelist Yugo's synchro monster revived so easily. In the turn I use this effect, I can't normal summon, but it doesn't matter because I'll do this again. He sent a card from his hand to the graveyard, shouting, discarding Speedroid Skull Marbles to activate the spell card, Speedroid Wheel. The familiar roulette reappeared on the field, plunging the audience into silence once more. Again with the roulette? Choosing to roll the dice again at such a critical moment? Moreover, with such a hand, just what was in it? Spin, Wheel of Victory. A small car swiftly raced inside the roulette. Everyone watched, anticipating where it would stop. Whoom whoom. As if foretelling his luck, the car finally halted on a pitch-black marker. What? Seeing the number, Yugo grabbed his hair, frantically tugging it. How could this happen? Ha ha ha. On Hikaru's side, the Tyler sisters laughed mercilessly, while Jaden and the others awkwardly whistled or shuffled about. Rin helplessly slapped her own face to express her frustration. UCI Fudo, however, showed no reaction. Wasn't it just a roll of one? Though it appeared as a roulette, it was essentially just rolling a six-sided die. Each side's probability was equally 1/6. After rolling a 6 previously, rolling a 1 now was perfectly normal. Of course, there were also things even the logical UCI couldn't explain, like Yugo usually rolling at least a 4 or higher, rarely getting low numbers. Regardless, clearly, that wasn't normal for him. Oh. It seems duelist Yugo's luck isn't especially good. But 2 dice rolls totaling 7 points is already a lot. Keep it up, duelist Yugo. Yugo, hurry up and duel. Stop messing around. Rin slapped the railing. Startled by Rin's shout, Yugo hurriedly recovered. Clearing his throat, he shouted, "It's fine. From my deck, I special summoned the Tuner Monster Speedroid Gum Prize." A small white box appeared before him, unfolding automatically into a sleek robot. Speedroid Gum Prize, Level 1 WAND Machine Tuner 0 ATK. Chaz muttered curiously upon seeing this monster. "What's wrong, Chaz?" Jaden asked. "This scenario seems a bit odd." "Ah, you noticed too?" Jesse chuckled. Now, the guy obsessed with fusion has both tuner and non-tuner monsters on his field again. Jaden realized the implications and muttered, "Could it be? This is probably the difference between Synchro and XYZ summoning," Alexis added. "I tune level 1 Gum Prize with level 6 Kendama." Yugo raised his hand, and with his gesture, Gum Prize transformed into a giant green ring. Kendama flew into it, becoming 6 shining stars. Spread your beautiful, majestic wings and strike down enemies at the speed of light. Synchro Summon. Appear, Level 7, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. With his shout, a green-winged dragon, striped black and white like a zebra, electrified, and armored with blue plating on its upper limbs, soared from the sky, landing swiftly on his field. Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, Level 7 WEND Dragon 2500 ATK. Oh! What a beautiful monster! The MC exclaimed upon witnessing Yugo's new synchro monster, quickly continuing, facing Duelist Amaji, who declared fusion as the noblest summoning method. Duelist Yugo not only regrouped but summoned a monster with synchro in its name. Truly remarkable. What? Synchro Dragon? At the upper-level banquet, where elites and nobles gathered, spectators watching this friendly duel frowned disdainfully upon seeing Yugo's summon. A guy from the satellite area dares to use a synchro dragon? Exactly. Does he want to represent our world? Truly ignorant. Precisely. At least our Jack, our king, should represent our dimension. A mere satellite kid. On the stage, the handsome, blonde-haired Jack Atlas politely declined all engagements, closely watching the duel. He wasn't interested in someone else summoning a synchro dragon. Let him call whatever he wants. His attention was on something else. UCI, so you did participate after all? Meanwhile, even the police in the satellite area, on the scene, cursed angrily, displeased with Yugo, a commoner, boldly calling upon a synchro dragon. Yugo felt somewhat irritated. Normally, he wouldn't care, but he worried about involving UCI and Rin. Right then, Hikaru shouted loudly, "Quiet!" He yelled at the police, "I don't know what's happening in your world. You must have your issues, we can't interfere. No matter what, don't insult dueling if you're duelists too. As representatives of our respective dimensions, we're dueling with our own methods, and besides ideals, there's no difference. Or do you want to demean your own world?" Some police hesitated after Hikaru's rebuke. Even if annoyed, they couldn't do anything since Hikaru wasn't from their world. Similarly, the upper-class nobles, hearing Hikaru's words, only continued watching angrily. Go, Amaji. You too, fusion guy. Yugo wasn't sure if they were cheering him on or mocking him. He felt slightly insulted again. However, Hikaru's words made him realize his opponent wasn't insane, just genuinely loved fusion. This ignited his passion even more. Nearby, Yugi Muto nodded softly after hearing Hikaru's speech. Interesting. Absolute fusionist, indeed, that title isn't exaggerated, Sito Kaiba muttered with a smile. Rin sighed in relief, reassured that her opponent wasn't unreasonable. UCI turned aside, pondering other matters. Come on, Yugo, Hikaru extended his hand invitingly, continue your turn. Chapter 179. Impressive. You're making me even more determined to defeat you. Yugo exclaimed excitedly, practically hooting like an ape. I activate the effect of Speedroid Gunprise, which was used as synchro material. When this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, I send the top card of my deck to the graveyard. If it's a Speedroid monster, the synchro monster summoned using this card gains 1000 ATK. Another gamble on luck? Haha, this guy is pretty entertaining. It's not luck, it's certainty. I trust my deck, it'll definitely achieve the result I want. Yugo swiftly flipped over the top card of his deck, glanced at it, and laughed immediately. The card sent to the graveyard is Speedroid Razorong. Thus, Clear Wing Synchro Dragon gains 1000 ATK. Clear Wing roared to the sky, its strength rising. Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, ATK 25003500. Next, I activate the spell card, Shock Surprise. He pulled 2 cards from his graveyard. This card allows me to banish up to 2 Speedroid monsters from my graveyard and destroy that number of cards on the field. I banish Gunprise and Razorong to destroy your continuous spell Flame Sword's Realm and your set card. Flame Sword's Realm shattered instantly. Flame Swordsman shrugged as he watched his old ally disappear, while the set card on the other side flipped open. Trap card, Destruction Sword Memories. How does he have those cards? Yugi Muto murmured softly. This is a fusion trap card that allows fusion summon from the graveyard, but right now I'm activating its first effect. He revealed a card from his hand. By discarding one Destruction Sword card from my hand, I special summon one Buster Blader monster from my deck. I discard Destruction Swordsman Fusion from my hand to special summon Buster Blader. A powerful armored warrior appeared, wielding a massive sword. Buster Blader, level 7 Earth Warrior 26003100 ATK. Buster Blader gains 500 ATK for each dragon monster on my field and in my graveyard. Phew, that was close. Yugo exhaled in relief. He was glad he hadn't directly destroyed the monsters. Otherwise, his opponent could summon a 2600 ATK wall and stall until next turn to summon another Flame Swordsman. Luckily, he listened to Rin's advice to destroy the back row early. That monster gains ATK based on dragons? Yugo pondered. Comparing the 1800 ATK warrior and the seemingly effectless tuner fusion, Buster Blader was undoubtedly the bigger threat. Battle. Clearwing Synchro Dragon attacked Buster Blader with Whirlwind Dive Slash. Clearwing produced 2 wind blades and swiftly tore through Buster Blader. Amagi Hikaru LP, 35003100. Good judgment, Hikaru said, glancing at his hand. Unfortunately, his hand didn't contain Shad Doll cards, otherwise, he would have had an easier time. Though that didn't mean he lacked cards to counter his opponent. Still, you look a bit inexperienced. What? Are you saying I can't win because I'm young? No, it's because you still have lots of room to grow. My turn, draw. Hikaru dramatically drew a card. Tiara, who had been watching, laughed upon seeing the card. Beautiful, Hikaru. Show this card to the whole world. That trip to the village of spellcasters this month was worth it. The magical scientist truly had connections. Hikaru nodded. During this month's preparation, after setting up his workshop spirits, Hikaru visited the village of spellcasters and unexpectedly acquired a brand new fusion monster, one perfectly representative of their world. The magical scientist truly was impressive, obtaining cards like Chimera and Dragon Knight Dracoequist, and even this fusion monster. Though Dracoequist wasn't suitable now, he could use this card. Activating the graveyard effect of Destruction Swordsman Fusion. By discarding one card, I return this card from the graveyard to my hand. Hikaru discarded the card he'd just drawn and retrieved Destruction Swordsman Fusion. Next, I activate the continuous spell card, over future fusion. I reveal a fusion monster from my extra deck and send one of its listed materials from my deck to the graveyard. I revealed Meteor Black Dragon. Sending Meteor Dragon from my deck to the graveyard. What's Hikaru planning? His friends wondered. Preparations complete. Oh. Duelist Amagi declares victory, the MC shouted. But Duelist Yugo has a monster with 3500 ATK. Does Hikaru have an incredibly powerful monster in hand? It won't be that easy. Yugo said. My Clearwing Synchro Dragon can negate and destroy the effects of level 5 or higher monsters and gain their ATK. Even if you summon a strong. I don't. Hikaru raised his hand. Currently, my hand contains only a fusion spell. Only a fusion spell? The MC was stunned. Could that kind of deck really work? You duel with that kind of deck? Yugo asked in surprise. Of course. Because I firmly believe fusion is the noblest summoning method, and I pursue ultimate fusion. Activate fusion spell, Magicalized Fusion. He snapped his fingers, revealing the spell card. Magicalized Fusion allows me to fusion summon a spellcaster fusion monster by banishing fusion materials from my graveyard. Spellcaster monster? But Hikaru's graveyard, ah. What did Hikaru discard earlier with Destruction Swordsman Fusion? Hikaru calmly showed 2 cards from his graveyard. Everyone saw clearly Seto Kaiba stood up abruptly, and Yugi smiled softly. And, at this moment, everyone watching saw clearly Hikaru was performing a fusion summon. Fusion materials, Dark Magician and Buster Blader. He raised his hands, clasping them together. Strongest magician of generations, and swordsman who hunts dragons. Witness this legendary magician's arrival. Fusion summon. Dark Paladin. Space tore open, and a red-armored magician stepped through. Dark Paladin, Level 8 DRK Spellcaster 29003900 ATK. Dark Paladin gains 500 ATK for every dragon monster in both players' fields and graveyards. This is a continuous effect and can't be negated even by your dragon. Yugo slumped. Battle. Dark Paladin attack. Super Magical Slash. Dark Paladin cleaved through Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Yugo cried out as his LP fell. Yugo LP 22001800. Next, Hikaru smiled, signaling Flame Swordsman, who attacked directly. Yugo LP 18000. Yugo clutched his head dramatically. The duel ended in stunned silence. The winner of the first Friendship Cup duel is Absolute Fusionist, Amaji Hikaru, the MC declared enthusiastically. Though the duel was over, the storm it caused was just beginning. Chapter 180. Hikaru achieved a brilliant opening victory, yet the reactions to this win differed greatly between the two sides. After losing, Yugo wasn't overly discouraged. After all, losing a single duel wasn't that significant. He frequently lost to Rin and UCI during everyday duels anyway. However, after his defeat, security officers forcefully dragged him away, hurling insults such as satellite trash at him, which infuriated him. Yugo struggled, persistently aiming to strike back, but the security had learned from past experiences. They sent two of their strongest officers to restrain him, while others used batons to subdue him. Such a lineup would challenge even UCI, let alone someone as young as Yugo. Hey, you guys! How can you treat a child like this? Jaden, unable to tolerate this sight, charged forward to stop them. Someone grabbed his hand, he turned around to see Jesse, also clenching his fists yet not moving forward, which gradually calmed Jaden down. Indeed, they were from two separate worlds. This was not their place to intervene. If they did, what kind of retaliation would the locals face after their departure? They could act heroically and then leave, but what about those left behind? This was only their first contact, and there was limited action they could take. Even if they genuinely wished to change things, further engagement was necessary. On their side, most of the spectators remained stunned, unlike their counterparts, who might not grasp the full significance. However, seeing Dark Paladin left them completely astounded. Particularly, this time, Hikaru didn't use a substitute fusion material, he directly used an authentic Dark Magician card. That was one of the world's most precious cards. Though there were about a dozen in existence, each was an absolute top-tier collectible, representing the ace monster of the first king of games. Beyond shock, many also had different thoughts. The Tyler sisters exchanged glances, noticing each other's shock and speculation. Their high status in the Fusion Army, as the strongest tag team duelists, allowed them insight into many secrets. Although Hikaru had briefly flashed Dark Magician, it reminded them of the Dark Magician the organization had previously lost. They exchanged another glance, excitement evident in their eyes. If it were true, things would become even more intriguing. Other spectators quickly crowded around Hikaru after their initial shock, eager to glimpse the authentic Dark Magician. Usually, such a card could only be seen as replicas in exhibitions, as the originals were meticulously preserved, and Hikaru appeared to be the first duelist in recent years to place and use Dark Magician in his deck, piquing everyone's curiosity. Though this Dark Magician differed in color from Yugi Muto's original, it was still a Dark Magician. Great duel, Hikaru. Can I see your Dark Magician? Jaden asked straightforwardly. Ahem, Hikaru, you know my master is that person. So, I've always wanted to duel a Dark Magician myself, so Chaz was uncharacteristically subtle this time. Numerous others, both known and unknown, including duelists and even staff members, flocked over hoping to catch a glimpse. A beautiful duel, a voice interrupted the enthusiastic group. Everyone turned swiftly and, upon recognizing the newcomer, respectfully stepped aside. It was Yugi Muto. He glanced at Hikaru, then briefly at Tiara beside him. Tiara hastily hid behind Hikaru, slightly startled. Hikaru awkwardly smiled. I watched your entire duel, it was excellent. Yugi Muto simply praised Hikaru, then calmly reached into his deck box, pulled out a card, smiled lightly, and handed it over. "This card is for you." Hikaru gasped in shock, carefully accepted the card, looked at it, then instantly raised his head to thank Yugi. "Thank you very much, Mr. Yugi." Truly, Yugi Muto's generosity was extraordinary. Gaia the Fierce Knight. Yugi nodded gently to the group, smiling as he turned away. Seto Kaiba, watching from a distance, firmly etched Hikaru's face into his memory. Kaiba had already noticed Hikaru previously, though he hadn't intervened directly. Now, seeing Hikaru using Dark Magician and even receiving a card from Yugi, Kaiba's regard for Hikaru surged exponentially. Wow! The spectators were speechless, holding on to this memory. Suddenly, they realized something else. Hey, if we perform well, could we? Maybe. Didn't that kid named Yuki get a card from Mr. Yugi before? Yeah. Let's go, let's go. Some were excitedly discussing their fortunate visit, others fantasizing about receiving Yugi's recognition, achieving fame in their hometowns, while some calmly adjusted their decks, silently motivating themselves. Kaiba Corp hadn't mentioned any rewards for this event. Still, receiving a card from Yugi Muto, like Hikaru did, who needed other rewards? Even a single compliment from Yugi could elevate someone's status immensely. Meanwhile, Yugo was tossed roughly into a cell by two policemen, dropped onto the ground like garbage. Rin and Yusei hurriedly assisted him. Fortunately, Yugo was tough, though beaten, he quickly stood up after stretching a bit. "Ah, what a shame to lose." He sighed, sitting cross-legged on the ground. "You did great," Yusei encouraged. "Your opponents simply prepared more than you did." Yugo was still young, and Yusei saw he had much to learn. Losing wasn't unexpected. After all, the opponents were elite students from another dimension's dual academy, and Yugo wasn't even old enough to attend such schools. Yusei frowned, displeased. They had requested that no young children participate, yet the upper echelons had sent one anyway. Didn't they have any sense of responsibility? While comforting Yugo, a voice called from outside. "Number 1. Whoever number 1 is, come out now." Yusei glanced outside and instructed the two juniors, "Rin, I'm going to duel. Take care of Yugo." "Don't worry, Yusei. He'll be fine." Yusei nodded, took up his dual disc and deck, and calmly exited the cell. At the same time, in the upper area, within the Security Management Bureau, a man stood with hands clasped behind his back, watching Yusei emerge from the enclosure. That wraps up this part of What If Fusion Deck User in a Different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. What If Natsu Had Dual Elements will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. I'd love to do another poll to decide our next project, but unfortunately, due to my travel plans, I won't be able to start a new series until the end of December if we go that route. So instead, I've decided that the series which came in second place in the last poll will be our next project. That means the series replacing What If Natsu Had Dual Elements will be What If Transmigrated into One Piece and Became a Marine? Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.